They heard the call, 3 saved by instinct, plus Bangkok's living nightmare. Introduction. A voice warned me before disaster. I survived. Here are 3 real tales and a Bangkok nightmare. It's 9 a.m., March 31st, 2025. I'm Jake Miller, filming in my Portland attic, camera shaking as I start. Last year, a whisper, "Run," jerked me awake. I bolted, seconds before my place exploded, gas tearing it apart. That call drives me now. Instinct saving lives, or pulling us deeper. Picture. This, cracks splitting the dark earth growling, because what warns us might want more. Story 1. Whisper in the Night, Japan, 2011. It's 9:15 a.m., attic's dim, dust swirling in the thin light. I'm whispering to you now, voice low, shadows pooling around me like spilled ink on a page. March 11th, 2011. Sendai, Japan, 9.1. Magnitude, Tohoku. A quake that tore the earth wide and drowned it in black, merciless water. Hana Sato, 42, a nurse with tired hands and a quiet life, was asleep in her cramped apartment. A 4th-floor walk-up with thin, rattling walls. A futon shoved against a window overlooking the restless, slate-gray sea. A place she'd called home for a decade, rent cheap, life steady. She woke, 2:46 a.m., pitch black, no alarm, no reason. Heard it, a whisper, soft, urgent. Get out, threading through the dark, curling around her like smoke, tugging her from sleep, pulling her. Upright with a jolt she couldn't explain. She stumbled, barefoot, groggy, nightgown tangled around her legs, grabbed her coat from a hook by the door, bolted down the stairs, feet slapping cold concrete, hit the street as the ground bucked wild, a roar swallowing her building, concrete, snapping like dry twigs, walls folding inward, the whole block erased in a shuddering blink. 1 minute, she made it by 1 minute, stood trembling, coat flapping in the wind, as the tsunami surged in, black waves clawing the shore, tearing through Sendai's bones. But she was alive, untouched, spared by a breath. Now the horror. I'm in the dark, whispering fast, breath fogging the lens, eyes darting. Hana swore it was her grandmother's voice. Kiko, dead since '98. A wiry woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, who'd raised her, fed her rice porridge on sick days, buried by the coast in a plot swept clean by storms, long before. That night, get out, wasn't just a hunch. It was Kiko, clear as a bell, hissing through the walls, the air, her skull, a voice from beyond the grave, warning her, saving her, pushing her out with a force she couldn't fight. She told her brother later, sobbing, pale, hands shaking over tea, felt Kiko's hand, cold, bony, shoving her to the stairs, heard her laugh, faint, triumphant, as the waves crashed, like she'd outsmarted death again, like she'd reached, through time itself. I'm running, camera jolting, floor cracking loud, footsteps pounding hard, because what if Kiko's still there, whispering in Sendai's ruins, watching Hana from the shadows, waiting for her to pay back that rescue, with something more, something heavier than gratitude, something that pulls her under when she least expects it. Story 2, Shadow on the Wall, Chile, 2010. It's 10 a.m., lights trickling through the attic window, weak and gray. I'm crouched by the wall, flashlight in hand, casting a shadow that flickers off-kilter, stretching where it shouldn't. February 27th, 2010. Concepcion, Chile. 8.8 magnitude, a quake that split the ground and shook the sky, a beast waking hungry. Luis Morales, 35, a carpenter with rough hands and a quiet stare, was home. A squat adobe house with a tin roof and chipped paint, drinking tea in his kitchen, 3:34 a.m., the world still as a held breath, a chipped mug steaming on the table, a radio humming soft in the corner. He saw it, a shadow on the wall, tall, thin, moving when he didn't, stretching toward the door, beckoning slow. Come, soft in his ear, a pull he couldn't ignore, couldn't shake, like a thread tugging his chest. He dropped the mug, ceramic, shattering on the tiles, tea pooling dark, followed it, barefoot, out the front door, stood in the yard as the earth heaved, house collapsing behind him, dust choking the air, roof caving where he'd sat seconds ago, adobe crumbling like dry. Bread. He lived, unscratched, tea still warm in the rubble. Because of that shadow, that call, that impossible nudge. Here's where it turns. I'm turning slow, flashlight shaking, shadow lagging wrong, bending when I don't. Luis told his wife. Days later, it was his brother's shape, Mateo, dead a year, hit by a truck on Route 5. A lanky guy with a limp and a crooked grin who'd dragged Luis fishing since they were kids, who'd laughed at his fears. That night, Mateo's silhouette loomed. Come, in his raspy voice, guiding him out, saving him, a shadow cast from nowhere, from nothing. But Luis swore, weeks after, voice low over a beer. He saw it again, shadow on the wreckage, waving, slow whispering stay when he turned away, a chill sinking into his bones like damp rot, a weight that followed him home. I'm running, camera bouncing, shadow stretching long, wrong, twisting. Because what if Mateo didn't just save him? What if he's still there, etched in Chile's broken earth, calling Luis back, pulling him into something darker, something that waits beneath the dust and ruin, something that knows his name too well. Story 3. Scream from Below. Nepal, 2015, it's noon. Sun's high, cutting sharp through the attic haze. I'm kneeling by a chalk crack I scratched on the floor, voice trembling as I lean in close, hands gripping the boards. April 25th, 2015. Kathmandu, Nepal, 7.8 magnitude. A quake that flattened lives and scarred the mountains, a shudder that woke the dead. Priya Tamang, 12, was in her family's mud brick house, a tight warren of rooms with low ceilings and dirt floors, playing with a wooden doll her dad carved. Mid-morning, 11:56 a.m. The air still and warm, sun spilling through a cracked window, her mom cooking rice nearby. She heard it. A scream, raw. Run, bursting from the ground, sharp, desperate, yanking her to her feet. A sound that wasn't wind, wasn't her family, wasn't anything she'd heard in her short, quiet life. She grabbed her mom, her little brother, dragged them outside, screaming. Herself, voice cracking, doll dropping, hit the street as the earth bucked wild, house crumbling behind them, dust exploding thick, walls gone in 10 seconds flat, a pile where her world had been. They lived, huddled, sobbing, alive. Because Priya heard it, felt it, obeyed it, a call that cut through the calm like a blade. Now the twist. I'm shouting, camera on the crack, voice echoing sharp, bouncing off the attic walls. Priya told, her uncle days later, voice small over a fire. The scream came from a fissure, a split in the yard she'd seen that morning. Dark, wet, like it breathed, like it pulsed under the dirt. She heard run. But after at night, she crept back, barefoot, heart pounding, saw the crack wider, deeper, heard whispers. Come back. Low, hungry. Not her mom, not her brother. Something under the earth, waiting for the ones it let, slip through its grasp. I'm running, camera jolting, crack behind me, chalk smearing under my boots. Because Priya swore she saw hands, thin, gray, reaching up. Priya hissing as she fled, a trap beneath Nepal's ruins, calling her name, calling her down, waiting with patient, endless hunger for her to stumble back, to answer its pull. Story 4. Nightmare Under the Rubble, Bangkok, 2025. It's 2 p.m. Attic's dim again, shadows pooling deep. I'm by a pile of junk, cardboard boxes, a busted chair, a tangled blanket, whispering low, camera steady on the mess, my breath catching. March 28, 2025. Bangkok, Thailand. A 7.7 magnitude quake from Myanmar. Shockwaves slicing through, toppling a skyscraper in the city's pulsing core. A 40-story beast of glass and steel. Ko Mint Kiauk, 34, a Burmese construction worker with wiry arms and a quiet grit, was on the third floor, welding beams for a new office block, sweat dripping into his eyes. 10 a.m., sun blazing through gaps in the scaffold, the hum of drills, and shouts filling the air. It hit, ground shaking, concrete groaning loud, the tower buckling fast, floors pancaking below him, a roar of metal twisting, glass shattering like gunfire. He jumped, instinct, no thought, no time. Leapt from a shattered window, landed hard in a dumpster below, bones jarring, trash cushioning his fall, alive as the building crashed behind him, a thunderous collapse swallowing his crew, his friends, trapped under tons of jagged rubble, dust rising thick as smoke. He survived, bruised, gasping, blood streaking his arms, heard their cries, faint, pleading, fading under the wreckage as he staggered away, one of a handful who made it out. A story he'd later tell BBC News with a voice that cracked like dry earth. Here's the nightmare. I'm whispering faster, camera on the pile, shadows twitching faint, like they're waking. Ko went back, midnight, flashlight in hand, to find them, driven by guilt, by hope. Ruins dripping wet from burst, pipes, air heavy with dust, rot, and the sour tang of Bangkok's flooded streets, neon lights flickering distant through the haze. He heard them. Voices. Ko. Soft. Broken. Calling from the wreckage. His friend Aung's rasp. His cousin Min's sob. Pulling him closer. Drawing him in through the dark. A lifeline to the ones he'd lost. He climbed. Boots slipping on. Wet concrete. Hands bleeding on sharp edges. Flashlight beam bouncing. Saw shapes, vague, hunched, help us, trembling through the night, familiar, desperate, tugging at his chest. But then they shifted. Faces wrong, eyes black, hollow, mouths gaping too wide. Stay, hissing low, hands cold, slimy, grabbing his ankles, wrapping tight. Not Aung, not Min. Something from the earth, the cracks, the ruin, luring him down with voices stolen from the dead. I'm shouting. Camera drops, junk scatters, whispers rising, a scream cutting sharp. Because Ko ran, told BBC News, voice shaking, he hears them still. Ko, from the dark, from under Bangkok's streets, from the shadows of his room at night, waiting to drag him back, to claim what they spared, to pull him into the earth where they wait, endless and patient, final. It's 4 p.m. Attic still. Camera steady. My face close. Eyes wide. Sweat beading on my brow. Breath uneven. These 4. Japan's whisper in the night. Chile's shadow on the wall. Nepal's scream from below. Bangkok's nightmare. Under the rubble. Start with instinct. Survival. A call that yanks you free, but end in shadows. Something watching. Speaking. Reaching for what it saved, turning rescue into a leash. I'm Jake. Portland, attic, day fading slow. Wondering if it's luck, fate, or a snare. If what calls us from the edge wants us for itself. If instinct's a savior or a trap baited with our own fear. Instinct saves or lures you in. What would you do? Run, listen, or turn back when it calls your name? When it knows you better than you know yourself?